Yee! Hey guys, welcome to the channel. My name is Tiffany and I'm the owner of Tiffany Gordon Cosplay LLC, which is a company that focuses on costume and prop fabrication as well as education. And I'd love to have you as part of our cosplay building community, so subscribe to the channel and give the video a thumbs up. Yeah. On today's tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to make your very own staff for your favorite costume. Ooh. And the best thing about this is I will also be showing you how to make it disassemble into 3 pieces for transportation. So let's begin. Starting off with all of the materials that you will need for fabricating the staff, and I'll have links to everything in the description, as well as the blueprint for the staff is available on my website, TiffanyGordonCosplay.com, link in the description. Starting off with the main pipe section, and I'm going to be going over how I kind of figured out where to cut this pipe so I could disassemble it, measuring out in 3 different quarters of the staff, making sure each of these segments would fit inside the suitcase. And then I grabbed my 3/4 inch CPVC pipe and marked where each of these segments were on it, followed by cutting it using a pipe cutter. And the pipe as it is will not randomly come together, so you do need another size of CPVC pipe, and for this I'm going to be using 1/2 inch, and I cut these in about 4-inch length, so in total you should have 5 different pipe pieces. Next, you're going to want to grab some 120 grit sandpaper and rough up the small pipe pieces. This is going to make it so the surface is no longer smooth and will give a place for our glue to adhere to the pipe. And the glue we're going to be using is epoxy, and for this you're going to apply it to your smaller piece and you're going to insert it into your larger pipes. And for this I did it for our top pipe piece that would have our main staff section, as well as to the middle piece for the 2 smaller pipes. Now for all the foam pieces, and for me, I used my laser cutter to cut out each of these 10mm foam pieces, but you do not need one to do this. You can just use a box cutter or an X-Acto knife to cut each of your pieces out. And here's what all of the pieces I cut out were. Next was to apply our contact cement glue to each of the pieces, wait for the glue to fully dry, and then start to stack our pieces to get our correct thickness that we want. Then I grabbed my box cutter and started to carve each of the pieces to the desired shape that I wanted. And don't worry about it looking patchy and chopped up, because we're doing this just to eliminate some of the excess foam, so that way when we go and sand all of these pieces smooth, we won't have as much foam dust in the air. Then once they're sanded, we can start to assemble each of the pieces, and for this I added the top and the bottom portion of our C part of the staff, and at the bottom portion I actually ended up using my CosTools circle cutter, using their 1-inch one, and using that into the bottom section to cut a hole and then to pull out that section. This will make it so my pipe I can insert in there, and that's how it's going to attach. And this will be where we will glue the pipe later on. Then for our gem section, I just added the 2 circles on either side, as well as using a box cutter to cut the 10mm round foam dowels, and repeated by adding our glue, waiting for it to fully dry, and then assemble the rest of the parts. And then finally we can add our pipe. And for this, we're going to be applying the contact cement glue to the bottom portion of the pipe, as well as to the inside of our foam. And this time, while the glue is still wet, we're going to insert the 2 pieces together and hold in place. And for all the ringlets on this staff, I ended up doing the same method where I applied my contact cement glue, this time just to the pipe where I wanted the ringlets to attach, slid on the ringlet while the glue was still wet, and then held it in place until it fully dried. This made it so that way I didn't have glue all over the pipe and it was only where I wanted it to be. And repeated the same process for the bottom parts of the staff. The last step for our foam pieces is actually going to be to help our connecting pieces together. And we're going to be using 2mm HD foam, cutting it into the strips the length of our smaller foam pipe that is sticking out. And we're going to apply our contact cement glue glue to both the pipe and the backside of the foam, wait for the glue to dry, and then we're going to wrap it once. This is what is actually going to help hold our two pieces together so that way they won't come apart. And congratulations! That completes all of our foam fabrication. Now for painting. And here are all of the tools and materials that you will need for painting the staff. Reminder, you do not have to airbrush paint this. You can paint it by hand with a paintbrush. Starting off with the most important step of priming our pieces. And for this, I'm going to be using Plasti-Dip, spraying 3 heavy coats onto all of our parts of the staff, letting 1 hour in between each coat so it can fully dry, and then an additional 24 hours after our last coat before we start to paint. And as a side note, don't forget to cover up your 2mm foam sections, as this part we actually don't want to be primed. And for the paint that we're going to be using, it was all provided by Cretex Colors, as well as all of our airbrush equipment and compressor were all provided by Iwata Eclipse, so thank you very much. And the first color that we're going to be using is the Ottobourne Sealer Silver. This is going to help all of our metallic colors on top pop. Applying this onto all pieces, and when that was dry, it was onto our next color, which is going to be Wicked Gold. And after 2 coats of paint and letting it fully dry, I ended up masking off all of our gold painted areas using masking tape and paper, and it was on to our last color, which is actually one of my favorite colors, and it is from the Candy line of Cretex Colors called Blood Red. But be careful, because this paint is very liquidy, so you do want to apply this lightly and then come back later on and do another coat. Then when it was dry, remove all of your paper and masking tape, and it was time to seal our piece. And for sealing it, we're going to be using Cretex Colors UVLS Satin Clear, applying a light coat onto all of the staff. And this is very important because that candy color actually will come off very easily unless you seal it. And for me, I wanted the gem not to be flat. I wanted it to kind of have this kind of broken crystally-like look, and you have to be very careful when doing this, but if you apply a heavy amount of the sealer just to the stone, it'll actually make the color underneath kind of drip and do this crystally-like look, and that's how I got it. But if you don't want that effect, do very light mist coats onto the whole thing, so that way you don't. And congratulations, you have finished painting your staff, and now all that is left is adding the ribbon. And here are all the materials you will need for this ribbon section. Starting off with cutting our strip of ribbon using red fabric, and for this I did it about 2 inches thick, as well as the ribbon comes to a point at the end, so I kind of just cut it into a leaf-like shape at the bottom. Then I folded my edges over, pinned in place, and sewed using a zigzag stitch. And for me, I kind of wanted the stitch to show, so I ended up using a black thread, but if you don't want it to be noticeable, you can always use a red one. Then for attaching it, and for me, I'm going to be using my hot glue and glue gun that were provided by SureBonder, starting by attaching it to the top highest part that I wanted, and then slowly wrapping it and gluing it around as I got to the bottom section. And as I said in the beginning of the video, I wanted this staff to come apart for transportation so I could fly with this to different conventions. And this is the 3 different pieces: the main section, the middle section, and the bottom piece. And as I showed earlier in the video, each piece was wrapped with the 2mm foam, and then you can be able to insert it into the pipe. It should have a snug-like fit, and if it does come loose over time, you can always remove that foam and replace it. And that's the staff. And that, guys, is how to make your own staff for your Fremen costume. I hope you found this video helpful for making your very own one, or maybe you want to do some other magic girl staff-like thing, and maybe this will help you for creating that. But I'd love to hear from you in the comments, so let me know, as well as don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. A big thank you to all of my company sponsors here on YouTube, as well as all of my members, specifically those legendary members who financially help to support me so I can continue bringing you more cosplay tutorials as my full-time job. And I'll see you for our next one. Much love, guys.